show going, man.
Hurry up, hurry up! Hurry up!
Hurry up! Hurry up!
Come on now. We're going to have action soon. Right here. It ain't going nowhere.
Boy, your ass got some technique, boy. You ain't show me that this summer.
Hey, why on tack?
Ball at the 5, third down and 2.
That was bad.
Let's go have some fun, bro. We ain't got to talk about too much.
He wasn't playing the ball.
It's holding.
Cliff. The Cliff. How is that not called?
That ain't going to call a damn thing.
What is the delay for? He's standing right there.
He's taking a card out. He's a piece of paper.
It's that close? Dear Lord.
Hello and welcome. We are the Aussie guys. Well, you can see there's an empty seat behind me. There's an empty seat. We've been stood up by one of us. Maybe we won't even mention his name. Ben, how are you?
Yeah, I'm all right, AJ. I'm good. It's so good to share this evening with you.
Yes, likewise. And I apologize for coming in a little late. Scott is he just said he's having Christmas drinks and he's blotted. Well, that's probably going to enhance the quality of this.
Go to Scott for all your fantasy advice right now.
And yes, a Merry Christmas to you too. And yes, on that topic, G has been invited to a Christmas dinner. Well, a pre-Christmas dinner, Christmas drinks, whatever. I think it is the season.
Yeah.
We actually had our staff Christmas thing yesterday. You may have done that. Probably the season, Ben. You might have been doing that. Acme staff Christmas lunch / dinner, whatever.
I've got 3 next week somehow.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Old team, new team, and then museum. So.
Wow. That's pretty fun. Oh, man, we only have one.
Yeah.
Oh, cheers, Campy. Yeah, maybe we'll just keep this lineup. We won't go back to the old lineup, we'll call it. The old lineup.
We'll put up a survey after this, AJ, and just see what how we do.
I was a little bit annoyed because obviously yesterday, well, you won't be annoyed with the result from yesterday, turned into a cliffhanger as it happened. But earlier in the day, because it was our staff Christmas thing and we had, beginning at about 9 a.m., lots of speeches, farewells, all of that sort of stuff. That went for a good few hours. All the thank yous and speeches. Like, we're getting a bit over it. Like, the first few were great. Yeah. And then when people are talking, suddenly you start sort of like, okay, that's enough now.
Yeah.
You don't have to thank every bloody Tom, Dick, and Harry. Yeah. That's enough. Like, yes, it's been great having you on staff, and we're sad to see you go, but piss off. Go.
AJ, you should have had like the Oscars music ready. So
Eden Ganley. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Crank it up after like 3 minutes per person.
Well, it's funny because the person who was emceeing it, a couple of people as it started to get on would sort of stand up and begin to walk towards the podium. But you can always sort of like if you get a gap, if they have a gap, like, oh, Jono, yeah, he was great, and yeah, big thanks to him. And then if you sneak in with a clap, then maybe everyone joins, and then it like wraps it up.
Yeah.
So not to belittle speech. I mean, like, there were some cracking speeches, and I'm not very good with speeches, I must confess. Not formal speeches like that. It's funny because for a job in which I talk to kids like for hours of every day, speaking in front of your colleagues is kind of tough.
Oh, well, I mean, I think as well, like, once you've been somewhere for a while, like it's hard to stay in that, professional mood the whole time and, give good points regularly. Like, you probably say them to that person 10 times a week. So,
oh yeah,
doing it all in one thing is a bit like, okay.
Yep, absolutely. So getting back to my story, my long story. So as some people may have also had similar situations in some leagues, because Dalvin Cook was a game time decision. And I had left him. I don't have a lot of shares of Dalvin Cook. You probably do. I imagine you do.
Yeah, plenty.
I've only got a couple of shares, but I do have a few shares of Madison. So there was some leagues where I had put Madison in, like in favor of somebody else.
Yeah.
And there was one league where I left Cook out. And because I was doing the Christmas party thing, I didn't look at anything until mid third quarter was when I sort of turned the game on. That was when,
was it still 29-0 then?
No, the Steelers had scored once, but it was starting to. It was it obviously was very one-sided, but the early going. But then suddenly people started adding on points. But that was when some of our staff decided to hit the karaoke machine, and so I was like, okay, I'm going to slink off to my office at this point, and that's when I put the NFL on. And man, it was probably the good timing, really, to turn it on. But I was a bit pissed.
Not if you were me, AJ, but yeah.
Oh, no, that's right. Because, it was sort of a Steelers run to the finish, but they didn't leave themselves any time. But Dalvin Cook, though, far out.
Yeah, it was a weird one. I saw someone tweet before the game saying, this is one of those killer fantasy decisions right now, because obviously a lot of people, it's pretty much make or break for playoffs this week, and it's like he put if you start Dalvin Cook, he will have 3 carries for 8 yards and a fumble, but if you put him on your bench, he'll have I think he put 200 yards and 3 touchdowns, so it was pretty close. So
wow.
It certainly felt like that, didn't it? Before it could have done. It could have been 3 carries, my shoulder.
Yeah, that was my thinking. I'm thinking if they put him in, then they're probably going to go real slow and just limit him, because Madison is pretty handy. It's pretty nice to have a guy like that on your roster.
Yeah.
So why risk sort of making something worse or re-injuring something? So anyway, that was a little disappointing for me. And I do have, this is the last week of the most leagues' regular season this week.
Yeah.
But in one league, actually, I should say in 2 leagues, these playoffs are starting because they're bigger leagues. And in one of those, I missed out on the bye by that much. So unfortunately, I'm playing this week, and the guy I'm playing against has Dalvin Cook. So it already looks bad. Well, actually, add to that I did also, because I was just too clever for my own pants, I thought I would have a sneaky start of Conklin.
Yep.
He didn't really do much. Given Thielen was out,
I
thought Conklin.
It was all KJ Osborne, wasn't it? Who a 5th round pick last year, didn't really get much luck last year, but this year he's been fantastic. And if, funnily enough, we'll come to what we're talking about in a bit, but if you put him in your flex, well done, because he was a cracking flex play this week.
I know, but how risky would that have been? That's pretty ballsy.
It is ballsy, but when you think Thielen's out, like you said, you knew Thielen would be out. I mean, they did hit Jefferson, I think, for 15 targets.
Yep.
So which is kind of standard for him anyway. But and obviously the big touchdown pass from Cousins, was the majority of his points. Although he did catch another ball in the end zone that he then got absolutely battered by Minka Fitzpatrick for a flag. But yeah, I mean, it is so tough, because that's the other thing, right? Do you put a flex player in for that Thursday night game? that's a risk in itself.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I sort of tend to I sort of almost tend to fade the Thursday night game a bit.
Yeah.
Because the Thursday night games, I don't know what your experience with them fantasy-wise is. This is completely anecdotal. I don't have any evidence. I could easily get the evidence. But anecdotally, I feel like players don't really perform very well, generally.
Yeah, those games in general are underwhelming, aren't they? I know there's a big, across the league, there's a bit of a get rid of Thursday night football, blah, 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 and with short weeks as well, that's all, teams that have been on a short week, there's always big risks. But personally, as a fan, and particularly being in Australia, having those on a Friday is great. It's kind of, it adds another element to, being a fan out here is no fun sometimes with the time differences and stuff. But that game does, give you something to maybe spend some time with on a Friday or Saturday night if you're not listening to us, of course.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. That's absolutely true. A fantastic result for the Vikings. Certainly two teams that have playoff aspirations.
Yeah.
So, an important win as well. Before we get into things, I probably should touch on some news that dropped actually, this morning, our time, overnight. Well, I was going to say overnight US time. Overnight our time during the day yesterday, I suppose, US time, was the passing of Demaryius Thomas.
Yeah.
At age 33.
Yeah, and I think obviously for me particularly, who has been probably started following the NFL at a time when that Broncos team were fantastic, and he was such a big part of it. Obviously, him and Sanders as well were a pretty dynamic duo, and always, we often talk on this sometimes, about how, this player's in trouble, or, the off season is this kind of, who's this and what's that. But by all accounts, this guy was, amazing off the field, did a lot of work in the community, was very well loved. Obviously, very, very sad news. And it's hard to, I guess, understand, how that loss will affect, the Broncos or people who played with him. I know there was a lot of players, on Twitter giving their sort of best wishes and all that, but so sad. And it looks like it's maybe something to do with him medically as well, which is even more sadder.
Yeah, well, it's still pretty sketchy at the moment. We don't really know, but it did just, I think all that has been released is, they said, a medical condition.
Yeah.
Terrible news.
Yeah, very sad.
Terrible news. Well, listen, what we thought we would do, because I was sort of thinking, well, given this is the last week of the regular season, that people are probably making a final push, like you may be pushing to get a bye week. Maybe you're pushing just to get into the playoffs, or just jockeying for some sort of position. Or I guess the other thing is you can be just trying to lose, finish last. Could be that kind of week, although we're not really concerned with that. If that's what you're trying to do,
yeah,
on the quiet.
Obviously, neither of us, AJ, would ever stoop so low.
Oh, never. It kind of irritates me in a league that I'm in. Listen, people do it. I've done it before. We all get it. Yeah. But when you see teams where they're actually rostering people who are on bye weeks, I reckon that is kind of crossing the line.
Yeah. Or starting anyone from the Texans. I mean, come on. Really? Just bad form.
Yeah. No one will ever believe you. There's no justification you could possibly give.
No, not after watching them last week, which I had to do for a write-up. And Jesus Christ, that I never want to do that again.
Oh man, my goodness. Well, so what I thought we would do is go game by game really quickly, and we'll just pick a possible flex out of each one. I think week 14 is a little bit like week 1, though. You're playing your studs, obviously.
Yeah.
You're probably not straying too much. Like, there's not many decisions to make, probably. You're probably just like, yep, that's my lineup. And if I've drafted well, if I've got the talent, then so be it. But let's just, it also has been a year with lots of injuries, and this week is no exception. So, you might be looking for some flex options.
And I think the matchups this week, funnily enough, there's no matchups where you go, oh, don't start that stud or that guy because the matchup's just too tough. I mean, I think, there's not really, there's a couple of obviously mouth-watering games such as the Bucks and the Bills, which sort of stands out. I think the Bengals and the Niners is a really interesting sort of game. Two teams sort of, around the cusp. But everything else you think, well, yeah, I mean, I'm not worried about the matchups here.
Yeah, and you were just about to say, as far as games you're really looking forward to watching, Saints at Jets.
Oh, my alarm! I actually set an extra alarm just so that I didn't miss it.
Now you're being sarcastic. Well, if you said you set an alarm so you'd make sure you miss it, then I'd believe it.
Yeah, that's true.
So picking a flex from this is a bit tricky. Who did you have?
Well, funnily enough, it was hard because I thought, well, I mean, is Elijah Moore a flex? Maybe he's not. I mean, that was a tough one. I didn't go for him, but
I feel like he's a starter.
I think he was as well, and that's why I kind of moved across at this stage. But I've gone for a guy who, look, he's registered 8, 9, and 13 fantasy points in the last 3 weeks. He's got 2 touchdowns in that time. And this, 2 of those games where he scored the most are with Taysom Hill at quarterback as well. So not worried about that. And that's the beautifully named Lil Jordan Humphrey for the Saints, who is a guy who's kind of, I think, undersized and is been around maybe for a couple of years. But obviously the Saints are very thin at receiver. Michael Thomas still not around.
No.
Traquan Smith hasn't really kicked on in the way that they want. And I'm trying to think of who else there is there as a receiver that can sort of, talk about. But this guy has shown flashes and seems to be a bit of a target in the red zone. So, from a very empty basket, I've plucked this little egg, and we'll see if it'll hatch or not, I guess.
Man, this is very different to Saints offenses of years past, isn't it? We've got Traquan Smith, Callaway, who's been a bit up and down, disappointing.
Yeah.
Little Jordan Humphrey. Such a strange name. Is that his official name? Little Jordan? Lil Jordan?
Lil. So L
I-L.
I-L. Lil. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. So, man, I don't know. You could probably pick any of those guys as a shot in the dark. The person I picked, it might be sort of in the Elijah Moore category, but not really, because he's a little less well regarded, I think, especially this year, is Jamison Crowder.
Yeah.
I think with Corey Davis going out, there's got to be, the big question mark really is Zach Wilson. Yeah. That's the thing that you're most worried about.
Yeah.
And the only thing that sort of concerns me about maybe flexing someone like Crowder is the floor is probably high, but the ceiling's probably low. in fairness.
Yeah, and it was interesting. I looked at Crowder, and when you then sort of dig into it a little bit, and you see 5-star matchup against the Jets. It's everything's pointing to all the arrows are pointing up and green, or on all the things, and you're like, oh well, yeah. But then you sort of look at him, and he's like, oh well, he's only got 42 catches for 372 yards, and his weekly wide receiver finishes. He's only had 2 inside the top 30 in the last 2 weeks, 102nd and then 35. And you just think, really, can I really? But like you say, we are, he's probably got, whereas probably someone like Lil Jordan Humphrey is a touchdown dependent kind of guy, Crowder's probably a more, he'll get the targets,
Well, you'd probably want him to get 10 catches. Well, 10 catches, hopefully 8 to 10 catches. And I think you might be happy. But that's the thing. It might also be based on what your matchup is like. Like if you just kind of need some points, my option might be better. If you're maybe an underdog, maybe a little Jordan Humphrey, although there's probably some better ones we'll mention. But might depend on your matchup.
But that was a rough one to start with, AJ.
I know. It's fair to say we're probably not watching that game. So next game, though, we might. I'm quite interested in this one. Is the Ravens at the Browns.
Yeah.
Is the next one I had written down.
Who did you have here then as your flex?
I hesitate to say. Would you consider? Well, is Kareem Hunt a flex?
Yeah, I mean, I looked at him and I was like, well, I think on Fantasy Pros his ranking is 20th.
Okay.
So I guess that would be, I mean, arguably that's like an RB2, but given the fact that he has missed a lot of time and he's only just sort of coming back to I think that's a fair call.
I mean, maybe that's not deep enough. It's a little bit hard. I could. It's a little hard too because I'd be tempted to go Rashad Bateman. He's cooled off of late a little bit, but partly also Lamar has just been far out. I've got a team where at the beginning of this season I thought I was primed because I had traded. I had actually traded quite a bit of. I'd consolidated quite a bit and got to a point where I had Lamar and Mahomes as my 2 quarterbacks in Superflex.
Yeah.
So I paid quite a price to kind of get to that point. But then I thought, well, then I don't have to worry about quarterback for years. And then also I should be a perennial playoff contender. Well, it just so happens that I'm on the edge. I'm really on the outside looking in, and I need a very strong and a bit of luck. I need a bit of luck and a very strong week this week because Lamar and Mahomes haven't been Lamar and Mahomes at all. No,
I think a lot of people probably last year, when they're, particularly in redraft leagues, were probably hesitant to take Mahomes and Lamar Jackson in the first round, which is a big step to take a quarterback in the first round. But I think this year they have been those 2 guys probably went more in the first round because they had a couple of, years under their belt with that just, outlandish production really. So a lot of those people will be disappointed this year, given the return for sure.
I do have a little bit of a dark horse, actually, although I don't want to take your player. Hopefully I don't take your player here, but Austin Hooper, because apparently Njoku's on the COVID list, and I think Harrison Bryant, who I quite like, but I don't think his time has quite come yet, but certainly hasn't. But he's dealing with a high ankle sprain, so I think Austin Hooper's going to get all the tight end looks in this game.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good call. And I mean, my only worry would be, geez, Baker's looked very, very iffy, you know.
He has.
And particularly throwing the ball, like, you know, Hooper, you would have hoped would have been a tight end who, you know, gave you 7, 8 touchdowns maybe.
Oh, yeah.
It's just not been that year, has it?
Nope, it has not. Who did you have?
Look, I had this was a tough one as well. Like I've got a guy here who has been involved in the Ravens offense a lot, and he gets, I mean, you know, I'm just looking at his sort of touches here. You know, week 10 he had 6 touches. Week 11 he had 7. Week 12 he only had 4, but he got a touchdown. Then last week he had 5 touches for 60-odd yards. And, his finishes at wide receiver in those weeks, 40, 40, 35, 48. So, you know, kind of that third wide receiver flex. And that's Devin Duvernay, who bit of an all-purpose guy. They use him out of the backfield, rushing. They use him, as punt return, kick return as well. But funnily enough, I was looking, and in that time, he's had at least 1 target in the red zone in each of those 4 games. So, you know, if you're looking for maybe, you know, and he has 1 touchdown in the last 3. If you have a guy that maybe might just produce something, Devin Duvernay, for me, could be a bit of a flash in the pan for this week.
What are your thoughts on the long-term value or the long-term viability of Baker in Cleveland?
Well, I think we talked about this a few weeks ago when we were, you know, we were mentioning, you know, quarterbacks who teams that might be looking for quarterbacks, you know, and I think I had a list of about 12. Like it was.
Oh yeah,
it's a lot. I just don't see him getting a multi-year extension for a lot of money there. I mean, the Browns are going to be a mid first round pick. It's looking maybe, you know, later first round, depending on what happens.
Yeah.
So they're going to have to either spend capital to go up and get a quarterback. And for me, there's probably, you know, only 2 or 3 that you might want to trade up for. Now, there's obviously free agents, but that doesn't look awfully appetizing either. So I could see maybe him coming back on a 1 or 2 year deal, but I don't think anybody thinks he's the guy.
Yeah, and he's been banged up. Like in his defense, he's been hurt.
Yeah. I
think he's got another year. And it's funny, I wonder what because you know all those ads that he's in, I wonder what, because you know he's pretty funny in those ads and things. And I just sort of feel like he's kind of been anointed publicly a bit. Like if he wasn't doing all of that stuff, this may be just bonkers what I'm saying, but I sort of feel like if he wasn't doing all that stuff, it might be easier to kind of dismiss him and say, nah, he's not the guy. It feels a little bit like that adds extra pressure because he's just so in the public eye, it seems.
And do you think he's like a guy around Cleveland? Do you know what I mean? Do you know what I mean? How
I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah, like the cities love their icons, don't they? You know, obviously, particularly Cleveland, who obviously had a large, you know, basketball icon for a fair while in LeBron,
yes.
But
literally and figuratively large.
Yes. But you just think, I think that like the quarterback has to be that person in a city, doesn't he? He has to have that, you know, oh, there's Baker, or oh, Baker's doing this, and I just don't know if he is.
Do you know what I mean, I've got no idea. I don't know if Dave, grumpy medic Dave is around. Yeah. I'd be interested to sort of know what the feeling of Baker is on the ground. Like, does Cleveland like really love him, or is it a love-hate thing? Or I sort of feel like he's a character. He's definitely a character, Like, he sort of says it. Sometimes he's a jerk, though, to be fair.
Yeah.
He says it as it is. Like, you compare him to like a Russell Wilson, where when you hear Russell Wilson at a press conference, you can go to sleep. Like, you could write his responses in advance of his answers. But Baker is just like, he doesn't care. He's just going to say stuff, including some stupid stuff sometimes. But I kind of admire the honesty of the guy. Like, he's not, there's no pretense about him, I don't think.
No, I mean, and I don't know whether, him living at the stadium helps or not. Giving the keys and all that to the local boy.
Scott, who's on a bottle of scotch worth of wisdom. Mayfield has the personality of a franchise quarterback, but not the game. Yeah, it's fair. He talks the talk, doesn't he?
There was a game a couple of weeks ago, wasn't there, where the Browns actually won the game, but he kind of just went off. He didn't celebrate with the team. He just straight down the tunnel, and he did give a pretty good excuse afterwards, saying, "Oh well, I wasn't happy with the way that I contributed to the team."
Yeah.
But that could easily be misconstrued, right? As, "Oh well, I wasn't really the focal point of the game plan, so why should I celebrate the win?"
I don't know if I'm getting this confused with someone else, but wasn't there a time like either a week or two ago where they had a tough loss and he just didn't go to the press conference after the game, but then he held a press conference. There was at a press conference the next day.
Yeah.
Is that what you're thinking of?
Well, I'm not sure if that was the same game, because they definitely won that game. Because the big deal was that he didn't celebrate with the team right at the end of the game. He just sort of walked off and down the tunnel.
Mind you, I think in fairness also is that sometimes you've had a tough loss. It'd be hard as an athlete, right? You've had a really tough loss, and then you're going to walk straight off the field via the shower, but you're going to go and then get reporters say, "Oh man, you did that. How did that feel? You played really bad." Like, you'd want to just get stuffed.
Well, it was a bit like the incident last week after the Patriots Bills game. I think, was it Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer were asked, whether they were embarrassed. I mean, come on, like, when you use that language, I think professional football players are gonna get upset. I think I would, like that.
I think that line of questioning is so stupid.
Yeah.
Like, you call yourself a reporter. I'm going to call you out. Like, ask a constructive question of the guy. You're not trying to embarrass him.
Yeah.
Like, "Oh man, Mac Jones only threw 3 passes. That's pretty embarrassing." Like, what kind of, not that he said that exactly, but it was sort of similar tone.
Yeah.
How's that constructive? You're just trying to get a reaction then.
Yeah. And particularly, like, watch the game. I mean, like, I thought both defenses were actually pretty great.
They were.
And, there was obviously the Chunk Harris play for the big touchdown, the run there, which you could argue, Hyde probably didn't make the right decision. But I mean, the Bills had the ball in the red zone twice at the end of the game, and it was more the offense not executing than anything that the defense did wrong. So, I mean, that's what annoys me. It's, like, at least if you're going to ask a question like that, tie it to the specific situations in the game. Like,
yeah, it's pretty poor.
Yeah.
And I don't mind when players kind of call that out, because it's just crap. It's just terrible.
Or coaches, as Sean McDermott did as well. Not wanting to give Mr. Belichick any credit whatsoever. Of course not.
Yeah. The Jacksonville Jaguars are traveling to Tennessee.
Yeah. Funnily enough, I didn't go the Jacksonville Jaguars route here.
It's a bit hard.
And I'm not, like, this is a tough one, but at the same time, I think it's it's pretty valid. Like he is the 39th ranked wide receiver on Fantasy Pros for this week. So kind of, outside the top 24. And it's Julio Jones who is returning.
Yeah, funnily enough.
Who's returning from injury off IR, off the bye week. And you just, probably a guy probably might not be on your waiver wire, right? But he probably
Jags win this.
Definitely a flex play here. I wouldn't be starting Julio as a 1 or 2. But yeah, I mean, AJ Brown still out.
Yes.
They have pretty thin at the position there. So I just think Tannehill's gonna, against a pretty weak Jacksonville defense who've struggled to stop the ball on the ground or in the air. I just think this is a really safe play for Julio to maybe at least ball out and get 60, 70 yards in a TD.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. And, it's Julio and the guy's got some pride and this has been a terrible season. And ironically, so in the off season during a rookie draft, and I've got a contender and a guy who was rebuilding traded Julio Jones to me for a 2nd round rookie pick. And at the time, the rest of the league were like, whoa, what the hell is that? Like there was lots of cries of the C word.
Yeah.
And I must say, in retrospect, looking back at that trade, the guy who got my 2nd round pick got the better deal.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you kind of guys like that, right? You're thinking 1, 2 years max, and even that, not a production that we're used to from that guy.
No.
And but yeah, I mean, Julio's still. I mean, he's not that old. It's just he just hasn't been able to stay healthy. And
no,
even in Atlanta, there were weeks that I think that whole last season he was pretty much playing through a high ankle sprain the whole year.
Yeah. Oh, exactly. Okay, let's keep moving. The Raiders at the Chiefs, another division game. Raiders at Chiefs. Who do you?
This honestly, because it was so tough to look at any of the Chiefs particularly and say definitely a flex.
Oh yeah.
So that was hard. The one guy
without taking a big risk. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the one guy that I did look at quite hard was Mecole Hardman, who potentially big splash play. But I mean, I think there's more value on the Raiders. And I mean, I think maybe one of us picked him last week, but I've gone for Foster Moreau. I think, just, a guy who, obviously with Darren Waller still out, only had 3 targets, but 34 yards last week. And the KC defense is good. It's been very good the last month, but
it has.
You just think volume, maybe end zone, look. This was a really tough one for me because I think the first person who came to my head in this game was Hunter Renfrow. I was like, Hunter Renfrow, slot, but he's a starter right now. If he's, he should be in consideration for, your wide receiver 2 guy. He's started taking that leap this year. And funnily enough, for this week's rankings on Fantasy Pros, have a guess where he is. What number?
He wouldn't be a wide receiver 1. He'd be
close.
Really?
Yeah. He was wide receiver 16. So
really?
That's behind. That's in front of Amari Cooper, Marquise Brown, Elijah Moore, Chase Claypool, Brandon Ayuk. That's credit to what he's done this year.
Wow. So are we? Waller's playing though, right?
Oh, is he? I'm not sure if he is. Is he back? Maybe he is.
I think he's back, but
okay. Well,
he may not be like completely healthy.
Well, that might be the worst flex call of all time then.
Well, and Foster Moreau, just quietly, is, I mean, like we often focus on running back handcuffs, but Foster Moreau is really, really good. Yeah, he is really good.
Yeah.
One of the best tight end handcuffs, I would say.
Yeah.
But, I mean, he just didn't get targeted. That was the most frustrating thing about that game. I think you said 3 targets or something.
Yeah, and it was probably it was a game that I did not expect.
I can't be saying Waller's out. Okay, all right,
good
he
man,
is.
Campy.
There you go.
Good. Fresh off the report, the beat there from Campy, and Waller's out. I wouldn't put it past him to be on his way to Vegas right now. Actually,
yep.
But yeah, like, I mean, Washington, Las Vegas last week, 17-15, did not see that coming. Thought it would be, 37-35, if I'm honest.
Yep. Scott's saying Renfro, well, complete with drunk spelling, but Renfro, the only thing that would make that more complete, Scott, is if you had a hick at the end. Hick. Renfro's benefiting from Waller out. Yeah, he definitely is.
Yeah.
But he looks good, like sort of baby cup. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe baby cup. But, yeah.
Who did you go for?
Well, I thought my original reaction was Renfro, but that's probably a little bit, he's not really flex. You could be starting him.
Yeah.
As your wide receiver. Then it gets tricky. Because I was originally thinking that Waller was going to be playing, so I didn't say Moreau. Moreau's an excellent one. And then if you look at KC, like, are you real? Like Cole, I kind of get. Are you really going to be playing anyone like Robinson or Pringle? Probably not. Like, man, have to be pretty desperate.
I mean, I did consider, potentially one of the, like Darrell Williams maybe might be he's seen a few targets out of the backfield. I think his last 4 weeks, he's got, 17 points, 11. He had that big, funnily enough, against the Raiders last time out, he went for 43 on the ground and 101 and a touchdown. So he might be a nice pick in retrospect there.
You have, sir. You can still type in a whole sentence. So, yeah.
I'm sure it was only 3 minutes ago. He said he was halfway through it.
He's just finished the other half. Okay, so Darrell Williams, I don't mind that. That's not bad.
Yeah.
I mean, as I said, I sort of had penciled Renfro, but I don't know how valid that is. I like the Foster Moreau one. If Waller's out, Foster Moreau's an excellent pick. So, yeah.
Well, I mean, particularly if you're in like a dynasty league, if you've built your roster well, over the last few years, you'll probably have a guy like Renfro available in your flex, right? Like that's a good pick that you've made that's now just giving you wide receiver 2 numbers in your flex every week.
Yeah. Absolutely. Cowboys at Washington football team.
Oh, I mean, this was a really easy one for me. Like I feel like, sometimes you look at this and you think, where is he in the rankings? And he's actually still behind the 2 guys, the wide receiver 1 and wide receiver 2 in Dallas.
Right.
So I think that's valid. He's also the 3rd receiver there. And he's had a hell of a couple of weeks. I've gone for Michael Gallup. Yeah.
Yep. No, excellent. Yeah. And I sort of underlined Tony Pollard. Does that count as a flex? Like, okay, so let's say I've seen in some leagues where people because a lot of Zeke owners have Pollard. They've gone out to kind of get Pollard. You could start them both. Or you could legit just start Pollard over Zeke. Last week, I saw someone do that and they reaped the rewards. Like I saw them. And originally when I saw them starting Pollard over Zeke, I thought, ooh, you're going to pay for that. But no, they didn't. Like Zeke's numbers are pretty muted, and Pollard, because he's getting real PPR numbers.
Well, that was a bit of a tough one because I was an idiot who didn't do that, but I did not start Pollard and I started Mark Ingram, which was just an absolute nightmare. Oh. Pat, if you're listening, we're not going to be going for a drink, mate. That was some bad advice. You gave me bad advice. Of course, it was my decision. I'm not gonna shy away from that, but yeah, that's fair enough, I think.
It's a little bit hard to pick someone on the Washington football team side. I mean, dare I say Ricky Seals-Jones, maybe?
Well, I think he's probably a great option if you're looking for a tight end this week. I think that's more of a, a better play because tight ends are, hard to come by.
Yeah.
But yeah, Seals-Jones is a tough one to put in your flex, isn't he?
Oof. Yeah. Very, very tough. Campy's just saying, Gallup he's very underrated. He is a free agent and he's going to be maybe one of the best. Although I think the wide receiver free agents next year are looking pretty good. Juju's a free agent, I believe. Gallup. I think there's going to be some good names. Yes, he will definitely be a good pickup by a team. Oh, and Pollard's questionable. I didn't know that.
No,
didn't know that.
But I think, since obviously Gallup's, he missed a whole chunk of the season. He missed from week 2 to week 9. But since he's come back, 3 catches for 42, 5 catches for 44, then 5 catches for 106, and then last week 5 catches for 36 and a touchdown. But yeah, 32 targets in 4 games. Like from a flex, that's the numbers you want to see.
Yep, absolutely. The Atlanta Falcons at the Carolina Panthers. Probably not a game that is one I'll be even vaguely interested in, but yeah.
And also probably one here that I looked at straight away and I went, if I find a flex here, I'm going to be doing well because it's very, very tough. I mean, arguably, he's the 23rd ranked running back, so it's right on that RB2. But would you be starting him? And that's Chuba Hubbard. But he's, even with McCaffrey on IR, his last 3 weeks, 5 fantasy points, 9 fantasy points, and 1 fantasy point last week. So can you justify doing that? I'm not sure.
No.
So I really struggled with this one. And look, I have to pick someone. So I'm going to pick Russell Gage because I think,
that's who I picked.
Yeah, I think even though, he's probably their wide receiver 2 at the minute. I don't know.
I guess.
Yeah, but his last 3 weeks, wide receiver finished 35, wide receiver finished 14, and then last week against the Bucks, wide receiver finished 8. So, probably available in a lot of leagues. A good solid start.
Panthers pass D is pretty good though.
True.
And it's Gage will probably go as Matt Ryan goes, and Matt Ryan has been pretty up and down.
Yeah.
But Kyle Pitts looks amazing, and Cordarrelle is, man, we've never seen Cordarrelle Patterson do this sort of stuff. So if they both are having a good game, then who knows? It could open things up for Gage. Yeah, that's who I picked.
Yeah.
A bit rough, kind of trying to pick one from this game.
Oh, there's one more game that's even rougher, but we'll get to that in a second, I imagine.
Maybe right now. Seattle Seahawks at Houston Texans. No?
No comment. That's my answer. No comment. I don't. I honestly, I did not see one player who I could arguably say good flex option.
Well, on the Texans for sure.
Yeah, I mean, even the Seahawks, I was struggling because the backfield's a mess. They've got no tight end, pretty much. The only guy that I thought worth mentioning, and maybe I just throw him in as a complete, like, I don't know why I'm even saying his name, but has seen a bit more, been more involved. His snap share's gone up from the low 20% to the 60% in the last 2 weeks. He did catch a pass for a touchdown last week in the victory against the Niners. Rookie, haven't seen much of him, don't know much about him. Dwayne Eskridge.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
he's not involved much at the moment. But it's a bit of a mess because and you could there's no real way you could pick a Seattle running back, let's be frank. Like on far out. Adrian Peterson's there now. Yeah. I don't know how you can
maybe pick one of those. Maybe he is the best option, actually, Peterson.
Oh, maybe he's as good as any.
Yeah.
He's as good as any. Who knows what's going on there? Metcalf and Lockett, obviously, and then it sort of kind of falls off the map. Freddie Swain is another one you could maybe you could sort of squint. I don't know. And on Houston's side,
these are all answers, AJ, that whoever advice you're giving to, they can see right through you, right? Like they can sit there like, you are not convinced.
No. Well, I'm not either. I mean, I'd have a hard time even playing Brandon Cooks, to be honest.
True. Yeah. Yeah.
And he's the best on the Texans.
Yeah.
And that's squint and click.
We've all seen Davis Mills throw the ball. We don't need to see that again.
No. Exactly. Let's keep moving. The Lions at the Broncos.
Yeah, this was a good one. I thought there was a fair few options in this one. I mean, there's probably one that's, for the Broncos that sticks out with the fact that they've, you've got Williams, Gordon, so two good running back options. You've got Cortland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy, but they're probably starters. Although Cortland Sutton, I probably wouldn't call a 1 or 2 right now.
It's tough to play.
Yeah. But I've actually gone for a guy who, rookie again, has really, was probably put himself in Detroit folklore with the catching the pass last week to overcome the dreadful Minnesota Vikings. But he has a guy that has been involved in this offense week in, week out. He's got 49 catches on 64 targets across, 12 games. So that's an average of, nearly 6 targets a game, 438 yards. And that 1 touchdown. Amon-Ra St. Brown. And I think what the Lions kind of found out a bit last week was that, you know what? Like, if we take some chances, like we've got guys who can make plays. Particularly, we know what Swift and Jamal Williams can do out of the backfield. Yep. And I think they even though Jared Goff has obviously got some limitations, like they do need to take more chances if they're going to win more football games. So, you feel like Amon-Ra St. Brown, against the Broncos, who good defense, but probably their weakest link is down the middle, which Amon-Ra St. Brown does a lot of work. Patrick Surtain has had a really good rookie year, so that it'd be interesting to see where he goes. But yeah, I just thought this was a nice sort of flex play for an offense that I think will just keep taking risks till the end of the season now.
Yeah, no, I like that. Let's hope they play him. Let's hope they give him time, give him snaps. and try to see what they've got in him because I really like him. I really like him as a player.
Yeah.
I mean, I wrote down someone who's kind of the opposite of Amon-Ra St. Brown in a way, and it's Josh Reynolds. But I kind of feel like it's sort of similar. It's sort of similar, like who's going to kind of get the ball? He might be just worth a flyer. But Amon-Ra I really like. I just wish he was getting a little bit more in terms of snaps. But anyway, I mean that whole Lions receiving core is pretty thin.
But I think I think they have probably found two guys there in St. Brown and Reynolds that are pieces, right? They'll probably go out and draft or get somebody in free agency to be the 1 and 2. But they're going to be guys who are going to probably be on the roster for the next couple of years and making plays. So I think that's what was the remit for the Lions this year, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's sort of hard on the Broncos side to pick someone because, if at a push and around this time last year, Tim Patrick was pretty good.
Yeah.
You almost need an injury, though, for Tim Patrick, I feel.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting just to clarify, you were saying Reynolds. So on Fantasy Pros this week, Amon-Ra St. Brown is ranked 40 and Reynolds is ranked 44. So very similar, close there. So I think that's fair enough.
Pretty close.
Yeah.
Okay. New York Giants at LA Chargers.
Yeah. I've got a feeling we might be going for the same person here, but as the Chargers man, maybe you go first. Or I'm happy to if you want me
to. No, you go.
All right. The news hit that Keenan Allen will be out for this game.
Is he 100%? He's not in COVID protocol, I believe.
Apparently, he's now ruled out. So,
whoa, okay.
That did inform this decision, but also his performance last week also informed it because he really made some great plays when his quarterback needed him, scored a touchdown, and it's a young receiver who I liked a couple of years ago, but then hasn't really got a chance this year. Jalen Guyton. So obviously a deep threat, and I think the Giants are probably extremely weak in that area. So a bit of a no-brainer for me, even though like you look at his stats and outside of the last week, which was his first double-digit fantasy week, it looks a little bit grim, but hadn't seen more than 5 targets in a game and averaged only 2 targets a game for the first 11 weeks. But then the last 2 weeks, 5 targets, 3 catches, and then 4 targets, 4 catches for 90 and a touchdown last week. So you feel that's an upward trajectory.
Yeah, and I really like that. I've got Guyton, and I do really like Josh Palmer, but I feel like if you had to pick, then you'd pick Guyton.
Yeah,
you wouldn't pick Palmer. Guyton will get more snaps. Mike Williams doesn't really count as a flex, although he could have a good game. You would think, with Allen out against a Giants defense that can totally be had. And it's a bit hard to pick someone on the Giants side, to be honest. I don't know. Yeah. No, I can't.
Let's move on.
All right. That's the easier thing to do.
Yeah.
49ers at Bengals. 49ers at Bengals. I think we've got Elijah Mitchell out.
Yeah.
I think he's in concussion protocol. I think that, although I people keep saying, updating me, I think I'm a bit behind on my news. I think Jermichael Hasty might be the only healthy running back that's on the roster this week.
Yeah, I think that's the case. The last time, I think I did see something earlier that potentially Jeff Wilson Jr. might be also healthy.
Okay.
So I think he did have his knee flared up though last week, and he didn't return to the game. So I think potentially either of those two options could be risky.
Yep.
And look, I'm playing the percentages here again, and I think you could argue that this guy, a bit like Michael Gallup, is the third receiver in Cincinnati, and that's Tyler Boyd. So, even though, I mean, we were a bit worried about, I think you talked to AJ a couple of weeks ago that you were a bit worried about T. Higgins, and he wasn't really, he's bordering on the line of, not being startable. But I mean, he's last 2 weeks, he's gone for over 100 and a TD.
Yeah.
And nobody saw it coming, really. Obviously
he's very good.
Yeah, he is.
I think he's just, at the end of the day, he's just very, very good. And I think that even though he's being sort of a little bit overshadowed, I guess, by Jamar Chase and how amazing he has been, I think T. Higgins is still very, very good. It's easy to forget that. I've forgotten that a little bit.
Yeah. 100%. But I think probably you could argue that him and Chase are the 1 and 2, and Boyd's probably the 3.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, Boyd just feels like, I mean, his last 6 weeks have been a little bit Mike Evans. He went 20 fantasy points, 2, 12 fantasy points, 3, 14 fantasy points, and then what happens this week? But I mean, the Niners are dreadful in the secondary. I mean, Josh Norman is giving up yards. Jimmy Ward's not the player he was. Jaquiski Tartt's a bit of a liability. So
yeah,
I just fancy Joe Burrow to pick these guys apart. And I'm not sure if Fred Warner's going to play. That will also, come into it as a coverage linebacker as well. So I just like, the numbers for Boyd.
Yeah, no, that's a very good one. Well, see, my initial reaction was Jermichael Hasty, but that's, you're rolling the dice fairly significantly there. But you could have a good, day. Mind you, I'm pretty sure that Debo's back this week, and that does take the edge off that. Yeah. So yeah, it's a little risky. But Tyler Boyd, I don't mind that at all. And we mustn't also forget that Tyler Boyd is also quite a good player. And he could be, I might be wrong here, but he could be a free agent, actually.
He is. No, yeah, he was the one I was thinking about when you were rattling them off. So yeah, definitely one that could get paid in the off season.
Man, if I was a GM, I think he'd be the kind of player I'd want to go after.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. What a cracking. We get to game of the week, which is Bills at Bucks. At Bucks.
I mean, I'm looking at my choice here now, and I'm like, why have I gone for this guy? Because, I mean, I was trying to work it out. So Fournette is probably an RB1 right now.
He is, yeah.
But there's probably no other running back you play there.
Nope.
Obviously, we know Evans, we know Godwin. I think Antonio Brown's still out, right? So
yeah, he is. Yep.
So there's probably not a third receiver there you want to buy into.
Too hard because you've got Gronk as well. Don't forget.
Yeah, because you've got Gronkowski. So that makes it a really tough choice to go with a Bucks guy. So then I looked at the other side, and you've got obviously the running back situation there is not great. So you're like, Dawson Knox, your tight end, is a tight end, so probably haven't got another one. So it comes down to the wide receivers. So I've gone for the guy who caught the touchdown pass last week against the Patriots in that that weather affected, shall we say, game. Gabriel Davis. A guy who's been, flashed, I think is fair enough to say, and has probably solidified himself there behind Diggs and who's the other one? Sanders. I mean, Cole Beasley's obviously probably a good option as well, just given the targets in the slot. But I mean, Davis has two top 20, top 25. Three top 25 finishes in his last 5 games as a wide receiver.
Oh wow!
Look, the Bucs give up plenty of yardage. I think they're struggling again at cornerback. Jamal Dean, I think, is out. Mike Edwards, I think, he's still out because of that whole vaccination thing. So, I sort of, but like I said, I'm not thrilled about it now. I'm talking about it.
I said Manny Sanders. It's all sort of much of a muchness. You could go Sanders, Beasley, or Davis, I think, quite easily.
Yeah, fair enough.
I mean, it was hard enough picking between if you were in a bind picking between Singletary and Moss, but now you got Brader as well. So now picking a Bills running back is like ridiculous. You can't really do it.
No.
Breeders look good in patches. Oh, all of them have looked good in patches over the course of the year. And in a couple of leagues where I thought I was being kind of clever, I have Singletary and Moss because they were quite cheap to acquire. And I thought all I need is an injury and I could have a running back one potentially on my hands, just from a usage perspective. But this is a mess. Like, you would need 2 injuries. You'd need like 49ers level injuries to occur for any of these guys to have any value. Otherwise, you're rolling the dice. You're hoping that one of them gets into the end zone. Yeah. The Bills are predominantly a throwing team. They want to throw, really.
Yeah. I mean, it was even, wind was howling. It was tornado style Wizard of Oz stuff. And Josh Allen was still trying to hit Stephon Diggs from 60 yards out. Like, they did want to do that. So, nice pick. I like Sanders actually this week.
Yeah. And Dawson Knox, in fairness, is a very good pick as well. Is that it? Did I miss a game?
You missed 2.
Oh, what have I missed?
Packers Bears.
Oh, Packers Bears.
And then
the
Monday Night Football is Cardinals Rams.
Okay, so Packers Bears. Who do you have?
Oh, I think this one is. I think it's probably the best flex play you could make this week. And that's AJ Dillon. Just, like probably a guy who has been in and around the RB2 situation. I mean, pretty much splitting the backfield now nearly with Aaron Jones. But I mean, his last 3 weeks, RB finished 3, RB finished 13, and RB finished 9.
Wow.
And a lot of that's come out like actually what nobody thought he would do, which is catch a pass in the NFL. Sort of, last 2 weeks, 6 targets, 6 catches for 44, then 5 targets, 5 catches for 21 and a score last week. Has got the Bears, so tough matchup. But you just feel like him and Aaron Jones will, get plenty of touches here. I mean, in his last 5 games, 312 yards on the ground, 2 touchdowns, 171 yards through the air, and 1 touchdown. So, yeah.
Pigskin Bulls has just chimed in to say Amon-Ra St. Brown's played 85% plus snaps the last 3 games. Wow, I didn't actually realize that. That's great.
Yeah.
So, yeah, possibly doing exactly what we sort of said we hoped they would be doing.
Yeah.
Is giving the guys some play.
Nice.
Yeah, AJ Dillon is a fantastic pick, I must confess. I really like Darnell Mooney, and I think he's been on a little bit of a tear. But I think Allen Robinson is back. I think he was out.
Justin Fields is starting, which will help him as well. Yeah.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
But I still don't feel wonderful, obviously. I mean, that whole quarterback thing is very up and down. It's hard to feel any sort of level of confidence, but I think Mooney has looked good, and I think he looks like, I mean, A-Rob's going to be at a different team next year as well.
Oh, has to be. I mean,
so, I think, playing under the franchise tag this year, but it just hasn't been good at all, and I think he's definitely gone. And so Mooney is the sort of the de facto number one next year. And I think, could have a good game with Fields under center.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's a nice pick. I think Mooney's a solid flex play. And probably has that more big play appeal than Dillon does probably as well. Like, that you could get a nice chunk outing from Mooney as well. So yeah, like that.
Potentially.
I think two good flex options there for this game.
Oh yeah. Rams at Cardinals, the Monday night game.
Yeah, pretty easy one for me. Guy coming back off IR. He's going to probably go in tandem with James Conner again, but we'll probably, get more of the snaps. That's Chase Edmonds. Just from, particularly in PPR leagues as well, you just feel like he's going to, get plenty of the ball out of the backfield in this one. They're probably going to deploy the sort of outside zone run scheme, like teams have been doing against the Rams, so that they sort of miss that Aaron Donald big shaped figure in the middle. Quite wise on the game plan. So Edmonds is great at that, loves to do that. And yeah, I mean, like he played in 9 games before he went on IR, and in everyone apart from one, he hit double-digit figures in fantasy. So you gotta feel confident about that as a flex option. Ranked as well outside the top 35, so 36 on Fantasy Pros for running backs this week. Very
nice. Pigskin Bulls are just chiming up with Komet for the last one, which is also not a bad. He's looked good. He's looked good lately. And you can imagine what it will be next year with Jimmy Graham off the scene. Jimmy Graham just muddies the waters a bit, unfortunately.
Well, he does when he's taking away 2 touchdowns like he did last week.
That's right.
You're like,
it's highly annoying.
It's like, why is that guy still catching touchdown passes? Like, why?
Yeah. Oh, exactly. And also chiming in with OBJ here, and that's also not bad, solid game last week.
Yeah. The only thing that makes me hesitant about that is this Cardinals defense is great. They've got everything. They dynamic, and I just think they'll be smart about the way they play the Rams. I think they'll very much pigeonhole Stafford into trying making those big throws that he has got in trouble a little bit with over the last sort of 4 or 5 weeks. So you kind of, I like it because I like OBJ call here just because of the volume he's going to get maybe, but just wonder that the Cardinals might subdue him a bit.
Yeah, not a bad call. I had Van Jefferson, and it feels similar.
Yeah.
Feels like a similar call. It just might be that, it's probably more chance you probably have Van Jefferson than OBJ, because OBJ has just got the name associated with the price tag. So, like, you either have him or you don't.
Yeah.
You probably haven't traded for him. Van Jefferson, depending on what your league is like, you may have even picked him up off the waiver wire early in the year.
Yeah.
Oh, is that right? TDs in 2 straight games for OBJ. I knew he had a good one last week.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's definitely a good call. I like that.
That is a very good call. That is a very good call. And fair to say, it'll be a very entertaining Monday night game.
Yeah, I think there's probably playoffs. I mean, probably not on the line, but the Rams have certainly slipped, keep slipping down the seedings. Let's put it that way.
Yep. Division game. Yeah. Oh, look, it's still all about getting seeding, isn't it?
Well, especially there in the NFC, which is wide open.
Yeah, and Chase Edmonds. I mean, James Conner. Well, James Conner, I think, is a free agent as well.
Sounds
next
right.
year.
Yeah.
Chase Edmonds has been very good. I almost feel like we could see the Cardinals go with this next year as well, like maybe try and sign James Conner again, because I think the combination works quite well. Probably frustrating for Chase Edmonds owners, because I think, if he had more opportunities at the end zone, it would be better, but that's sort of giving Conner the end zone carries.
Well, and if you're James Conner's agent, like, you're looking for RB1 money somewhere, aren't you? I mean, come on.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
It's tough though as a running back. It's tough to kind of get that kind of money.
Yeah.
Especially when you see so many injuries and you see so many teams just like kind of starting guys all the way down their roster. It's hard to kind of invest, in top tier running backs.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like it. Chase Edmonds, very good.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, Pigskin Bulls are saying heavy on tight ends tonight, but Ertz's a good play. Yeah, no doubt. And I had him in. Not that many leagues I had him in, but there was a league I had him in, and I traded him. I think like literally a day or two before the trade. And I got minimal value for him. But then his value just went through the roof, and he's been playing very well.
Yeah, and great trade by the Cardinals, I think, because one of I think it happens more in baseball. Guys are traded because teams are contenders, and they're like, well, we know we're only going to have this guy he's going to be with our organization for like 60 days. That's it.
Right.
And they're giving him, usually paying big salaries in that time for, not much beyond that. But it's a real intent, like, well, we're going for it. We want to win. So that's why we're making this trade. And this is what this trade has been for the Cardinals. I mean, he's going to be a valuable piece. And he's a kind of guy, isn't he? Like that if the Cardinals get to the Super Bowl, you think, oh, I bet Zach Ertz scores a touchdown here. You just see that happening. So, he's been a very good addition.
It's funny like that. I think guys who have got playoff or Super Bowl experience can be actually really, really valuable. In that home run. He's the number 12 tight end, is he? Mind you, it's not that hard to sort of get to become a tight end one, is it?
The question is, how are they 11 before him?
Yeah. Oh, tight end. My goodness. Anyway, that's it. We've gone through all of them.
And we finished before 1 hour 20 without G.
Yeah. Well, we probably could have done it quicker. Anyway. Yeah.
No, but that was good.
We've done all right. Anyway, hopefully that's I don't know if it's been helpful. As I said, sort of at the top, I feel a little bit like week 14, you're kind of like playing who you have. You're probably not, and some leagues, I don't like trade deadlines, but some leagues have had their trade deadlines come and go as well, which I also find so frustrating, especially with so many injuries. I've got a couple of teams like that where I'm like on the cusp, but injuries have just sort of hit hard and there's nothing you can do now.
I almost feel like, fantasy trade deadlines should end like the week, like this week, really, like, before the game started this week, because generally this week is like the deciding week. Everyone knows whether they're in or out of the playoffs after this week. So, you can trade if you have that big injury and you want a piece to get you in the playoffs or whatever. But then that's who you've got now for your playoffs. Like, you can't add or, do anything.
I mean,
else.
that's probably the big knock on, or the big reason for trade deadlines is that you have teams go into the playoffs and then suddenly they pull off some mega trade and they become like a super team. But I sort of feel a little bit like if you're out of the playoffs, isn't that exactly what you want to do?
Yeah.
It sort of really cuts you off at the knees if you're like a bottom 6 team where you've got you've missed, for whatever reason, you haven't, the value of guys, some of those older guys just increases.
Yeah.
And now would be the perfect time because like the people who are in the finals, they're not, they're like, they don't think straight. Because you've got the stars in your eyes. It's perfect time if you're a bottom 6 team to take advantage. It feels unfair to have that limitation. Like if someone wants to pay a ridiculous price, then surely we should just let them. Like they're kind of really going for it.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that's a good way to put it. And it means that your owners in your leagues, your managers, probably a better word, stay involved and stay interactive.
Oh, yeah.
Right up to that point as well, which is always something, that sometimes leagues struggle with.
Yeah. Oh, precisely. Precisely. All right. Well, I would say good luck with your week 14 matchups. Hope you get into your finals. Or if your finals have already started like mine having one league, Scotfish Bowl finals start this week too.
Yeah.
Did you make the finals?
You know what? I finished 8-5 and I just missed out. Out. There was like 6 teams all sort of, a game within each other. And I did win, but I just missed out on points. So, but that was my first year in Scotfish Bowl. So finishing with a winning record was good. I had a poor start and then, I think I was 1-4. So, that was what killed me really. But yeah, how about you? Did you get in?
I'm in the finals and I haven't really, it's funny because I sort of really stopped trying early because even before the season started, who did I lose? I lost ETN and there's someone else. Basically like my second and third round picks I lost. I'm trying to think who else it was. Trying to think of prominent injuries. It's such a long time ago now.
Yeah.
But I looked at my team and thought, oh, I'm screwed. I can't recover. But I also did have some really good picks. Like I think I do have Debo and maybe I've got some guys that sort of came out of left field a little bit.
Well, like Renfro, I had a guy like Renfro who was.
I think I've got Renfro. Yeah.
Yeah. Ended up being an everyday starter. That's what kind of guy that you need.
Yeah. So my team has sort of surprised me a bit, and I have made at least the first week of the playoffs, but probably won't progress past this. I don't think. I think that would be a minor miracle if I do. My quarterbacks aren't very good. I think I've got Derek Carr and can't remember who my second one is because I pretty much faded quarterback. I think I went tight end first, actually. Come to think of it, I think I maybe I've got Waller. I don't think I've got Kelsey.
Yeah.
I think I've got Waller. Kittle would be a good pick. Damn, I don't think I've got Kittle.
Yeah. But I mean, a lot of teams that probably pick Kittle might have struggled because
that's right.
He was not there for a long time.
Yeah. He's coming good at the right time. So So if you're in your playoffs already, good luck. If you're still jockeying for position, trying to get in your playoffs, good luck. This is crunch time. It's pretty fun. Fantasy season goes by pretty fast, though, I must confess. Seems to.
Week 14, that seems ridiculous.
Yeah, it does seem to go past pretty fast. All right, so I should probably wrap this up. I always take a long time to wrap up. So thanks, everybody.
AJ, I won't give you a hard time about it.
Oh, thank you. Pigskin Bulls are saying here, there are some dynasty leagues where tanking is not an issue because they use maximum points or potential points for draft position, which is very fair, actually. Which is very fair.
I know some leagues, a couple that I'm in, the kind of consolation bowl or whatever you might call it, that gets you an additional pick at the end of the first round, which is that's always a good one to keep people active too.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, best of luck, very best of luck, and thanks for tuning in. On behalf of Ben and myself, and G, I guess in absentia. I don't know if
I'm sure he's thinking about us.
I'm sure he's not. He'll be a good bottle of gin in, I think, at this stage. On behalf of Ben and myself, thank you so much, and we will catch you next time. Good luck.